Hello, fellow humans. Chris here again. So today I want to respond to another question. My apologies for the delay on this video. I have had some things come up over the last month that have really put this kind of on the back burner. But I did definitely want to respond to that. So there was a question about sort of the day to day life in prevention, and it sounded like they were more specifically wanting to know about container inspections. So I will do, first off, I'll just do kind of a brief day in the life of for prevention, and then I'll go more specifically into a couple of unique situations that I found myself in containers. So for the prevention side of things, basically you are, again, I'm assuming that you're in the kind of the E4, E5 range. Um, so you're going to be assigned to either containers or facilities usually, but usually you'll also do both. Like if they need coverage over one more than the other. So let's say your specialty is containers. You would be in contact with the ports, the terminals in your area of responsibility, and you would be getting shipping papers from them for any incoming containers that are carrying hazardous materials. So in the container world, you basically have your hazardous materials, we call them hazmat, and then your general cargo. With general cargo, you're really just checking that they're not carrying undeclared hazardous materials. And with hazardous materials, you're making sure that the containers, the hazardous materials that they're carrying are what are reflected on the shipping papers themselves. So in other words, they're not carrying hazmat that they're not declaring, and also that they're carrying the hazmat appropriately. Needs to be packaged a certain way, labeled and marked a certain way, all dependent on what the hazard is, what the hazard class is. So from the container side of things, you are in communication with these local facilities, ports, terminals, and you're getting shipping papers ahead of time that will be held. So those containers containing certain hazmat will be held for you to come and inspect. In the meantime, you also have your general cargo, which you have a certain quota that you want to hit every year. And the key thing with general cargo is the system for targeting general cargo containers to inspect has to be randomized. So you can't just go out and say, let's go get that container over there. There has to be a standardized randomization, meaning your unit has to have in writing in their policy the procedures for selecting containers in a random way. The most common way that I've seen, pretty much what I always see, is some variation of using the date. So if the date ends in a 1, then any containers with the check digits ending in a 0, 1, or 2, because they'll usually do one number before, one number after. If the if the date is the 18th, then you can take the 8, and you could, if the check digit ends in a 7, 8, or a 9. The check digit is just the two-digit number that comes at the end of the container ID. You'll learn more about that in the field. So anyway, those are the two basic types of containers that you'll inspect. So unique situations, for me, probably the most unique one was a poison inhalation hazard that was in in a group of canisters that had toppled over. Um, Good example of the seriousness of the hazardous material itself, making an, a discrepancy like that a bigger deal than if it was, say, a non-toxic gas or sanitizer or something like that. When it's a poisonous inhalation hazard or any kind of poison toxic material, you have a very specific set of steps that you have to take. Before you open a container that has poisonous material in it, you have to call back to your command, tell them what terminal you're at, and tell them the actual physical parking space of this container that you're checking, what time you're opening it, and then if you don't call back in 15 minutes, they're going to call 911 and send an ambulance to you. So they take that really seriously. So when you open a container and all the poisonous gases are knocked over to one side, you gotta you kind of take that seriously too. So we just closed it back up, sealed it off, called back, let them know what was going on, that we were not going to continue inspecting the container. You hold it, you give them a detention, and you basically let the facility operator know, and that container is detained until they can come devan it and get all that fixed and secured properly. And then at that time, a container team will come back out and re-inspect it. Other than that, common situations that you see is, as I said before, hazmat not being declared, not being packaged properly, things being mislabeled or not labeled. A lot of times you'll see a placard missing, a label missing, or sometimes they'll be using a label or a placard that is actually not allowed. There are certain labels that don't mean anything from a federal I always want to say the abbreviations, FHMCL, Federal Hazardous Materials Transportation Law, or IMDG, International Maritime Dangerous Goods. There'll be labels that don't mean anything under those two authorities, but they are not allowed because they look too much like placards that are governed by those authorities. So as I'm explaining all this, I'm realizing that a lot of the things that I'm saying can be expanded on in more detail. Now, I don't know the depth of knowledge for the person that asked me specifically about a day in the life of containers, so I just want to be careful about going too fast over certain topics. So those were a couple of the stories on containers. The thing with prevention as a whole is it's kind of hard to outline a typical day. I guess essentially a typical day would be coming in, checking over the paperwork for whatever inspections you were going to do, going through your safety check, going out and doing the inspection, and then coming back with all the documentation. You'll have marked down any containers that you put on hold, any containers that you cleared, and then you're going to go into MST, which is the program database that we use to account for all the inspections that take place. So again, the reason why I was being a little hesitant before is I could spend another hour going more into detail on some of these other aspects. I'm assuming that you're at a place where you're not in the military yet and you're thinking about joining. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hoping that I'm correct in that, because I think you were talking about you're thinking about going active or reserve. Some people are already active and they're thinking about if they want to go reserve or stay active or maybe just get out. So I'm not sure if that's what's going on, but I'm assuming based on the questioning that you're actually thinking about joining at all. In which case, I will try to be more vague in terms of not getting too much into the weeds. At the same time, I don't want to paint an incorrect picture. So I do I do still want to try to address some of the specifics as well. But let me know if what I've said was kind of what you were looking for. um, I can go into detail on any of the sort of finer points. If you have questions about like the hazard classes themselves, what are some of the marking requirements, what are some of the placarding, labeling requirements, all that. What's the difference between a placard and a label, or a mark? Because those are all different things. But if you're just thinking about if you want to go MST, and if you're just thinking about if you want to go active or reserve, then I could make a whole nother video about that. I always tell people that are active duty already and they're thinking about getting out, I always try to encourage them to at least consider the reserves, because it is a great way to allow yourself to kind of get out and get a civilian job, but also hold on to all the equity you've built up in all your time. You get a point for every day that you serve on active duty. Those points add up for retirement. So if you spent 4 years on active duty and then go to the reserves, you have a huge leg up with those 4 years over somebody that's just been a reservist their whole career. So I hope that helped in some way. As to deciding whether to go active or reserve, that's going to really depend on your life situation. What you see yourself doing. Do you think you want to go a career with the Coast Guard, or do you think you just want to do it for a few years, maybe while you're getting through school? I certainly used it to help pay for my college. That was actually originally one of the main reasons why I joined at the time, but I stayed for other reasons. Just being able to serve my country and kind of feel like I'm giving back in some way. When it comes to the reserves or active, the good thing about the reserve is when you wear the uniform, you're wearing the same uniform as everybody else, and you're doing the same job if you're coming in during the week. So my experience, although maybe more diverse and sporadic because I don't do it every day, it's still an experience that you would get with active as well. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. I work with active duty when I'm going in during the week. So anyway, I hope that helped a little bit. Forgive me, I'm a little bit tired. I've had kind of a busy day, and I wanted to get this video out because I know I've procrastinated for a while on this, and again, I apologize for that. I hope that you were able to get information from other places as well. I'm definitely open to sharing more information about some of the finer details when it comes to containers and also facilities. We didn't really talk about facilities at all, but again, I kind of gathered that we were kind of wanted to talk about just the difference between active and reserve. So anyway, please feel free to leave other comments. I love the interaction, and as I said before, I don't need to have a whole lot of subscribers. I like feeling like I'm providing some kind of help to somebody. A lot of people helped me before I joined and after I joined as mentors, and I definitely want to be able to give back for that. So thanks for keeping up with me all this time, and hope to see another future comment or question, and I will answer it as soon as I can. All right, take care.